Welcome to Earth is Waking Up. I'm your host, Jeremy Anderson. Today, our guest is a teacher, coach, healer, infinity waver, end of life midwife. Since her spiritual awakening at Feinhorn Foundation in 1976, she's been a dedicated seeker of truth, healing, and wisdom. For decades, she's been opening her channel to higher guidance through intuitive dowsing, and her spiritual teaching and coaching with this tool has helped people transform their lives. In 2010, she received a series of visions. First, a massive wave on its way to Earth, representing an incoming evolutionary push for the planet, which ultimately morphed into a standing figure 8 made of flowing water. Through dowsing, it was revealed that this moving geometry was the 10th dimensional energetic tool called the infinity wave, sent to us by a benevolent universe to be more quickly and easily transform pain and suffering into joy and freedom during tumultuous times, which of course are upon us now. She then launched the Wave Energy Center for Conscious Evolution, dedicated to applying the infinity wave for positive, expansive development of the individual, the community, and the earth. Very much along, yes. Hope has led many workshops and appeared on dozens of international internet and radio shows, continuing to fulfill her mission to encourage individual and planetary awakening around the globe. She also offers services as an energy healer, certified neurofeedback practitioner, and a death doula, incorporating sound, Reiki, and essential oils into her work. In addition, she guides intimate groups to potent areas around the world, including Peru, Easter Island, South Africa, France, England, Ireland, Wales, and various US locations. During these spiritual adventures, she teaches ways to communicate with the landscapes, believing that when the powerhouse of the human heart interacts with a highly charged site, an alchemy occurs that is guaranteed to cause a shift in consciousness. She also serves as faculty member of God Self University. I'm excited to have you on. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Jeremy.
That was a little more of a mouthful than I was fully ready for.
It's okay.
Excited to have you. So I love to hear a little more about how you got into what you got into, how you started your path of awakening.
Well, it goes back for a bit, as they say. I really was a very curious child. I wanted to read the Bible when I was 9, and I asked my mother to take me to all different kinds of houses of worship, all different denominations. I was really looking for something I didn't know what. And then when I was 17, my mother insisted that I learn how to do meditation. So in those days, you went and you sat and you were trained for a certain period of time and received a mantra and transcendental meditation, and I started doing that. And it, I would say that began an opening that already had been more in a traditional sense had been there. I then went to Findhorn in Scotland at 21. And I had learned by then, I had learned some hands-on healing techniques. I'd learned a lot about the body and herbs and alternative ways of eating.
Yeah.
And when I went to Findhorn, which is a community in northern Scotland, which at the time was making headlines for its amazing vegetation that was growing basically in sand on the North Sea. And I highly recommend people to look up, it's called FIND as in dog, HORN, one word pronounced Findhorn. It is a remarkable story, and there's a book called The Findhorn Garden. It's true, I was there, I saw it, I tasted it, and it kind of blew my cork out, if so to speak. The energies there were very potent, and you couldn't withstand a negative attitude. Nobody could. I was in a group. They structured things to have a class, and then you would work. It's a community, so you would work in the kitchen or whatever your job was that day, and then you'd have lunch, and then you'd do the same thing in the afternoon. And in our class, we had people from all over the world, all ages, all colors. It was and they'd all woken up and basically been called to go there. One guy worked his way on a cattle boat from Africa to get there. It was the most interesting combination of people, but one person was a journalist, and she was hard boiled and she was proud of it.
Yeah.
And it took her till the last day, but she finally cracked. Everybody else had long, given up the ghost, and we were totally in this amazing energy of love and high vibration. But she finally, and it was a beautiful thing. Anyway, so out of that, my understanding of how to do manifestation, my understanding of how the laws of the universe worked, completely changed. And I guess I began in earnest a life lived with more flow. They didn't call it that then, but we would understand that term today. And then one thing led to another. I studied different kinds of healing. I almost never read a novel after that. All the books I read were various approaches to spirituality, to philosophy. I looked into many different religions and I tested them out on, I really deeply explored, but I did so quite privately.
Uh-huh.
And because in those days, if you talked about these things, you got a lot of rolled eyeballs, and people just they weren't open, um, and so much of that has changed. The ways that you and I can even just be talking right now as if this is common, no big deal. Well, that wasn't the way then, so I kept it quite private.
Yeah.
um, and I had some amazing experiences, but I lived my life as well. And then uh, I learned neurofeedback and became a practitioner. This is a brain training program, and it's like taking the brain to the gym and working it out, and then putting it through a car wash and cleaning it out. And on the other side, the brain is feeling pretty darn good. The beautiful thing about neurofeedback is it helps the dendrite system within the brain to sort of break apart in a positive way, things that are attaching in there that are really not useful to us. And the brain does it by itself. It's absolutely miraculous. So I learned how to do that, and worked on many people, and saw this incredible unfolding just through the power of this computer program. Um, yeah, I would say it's almost like meditation times 10.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of its effects, I don't replace, you know, neurofeedback for meditation, but it has an amazing effect, and I still am a practitioner to this day. It's been about 20 years.
Wow.
So then, oh yeah, along the way, about 24 years ago, um, I was studying feng shui because I was also a designer. And in my feng shui course, one night, the teacher came in with a bunch of wire hangers and a pair of wire cutters. And as she was talking, she was cutting these wire hangers into these L shapes. And at when she was done talking, she handed everybody in the class two L-shaped wire hangers. And she told us to go outside and ask these wire hangers, holding them in our hands like this, to indicate where the water main was to the house, and that they would cross when you were standing on the water main. And sure enough, every person in the class had their little wire hangers go like this,
Wow.
right on the water main. And I said, "What the heck is this?" And she said, "Well, this is dowsing." Of course, I knew dowsing in the sense that the old-timey guy goes out with his stick shaped like a Y to find water for a well in a field. And so when he's walking along, the long point of the Y would point down and
Yeah.
say, okay, this is where you can drill a well. But of course, I've learned subsequently it's much more than that. You're asking how deep the well is, how many gallons per minute, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway,
Huh.
that's what I knew from dowsing. And I had worked with pendulums in the past, but this was different, and this was being used by this ancient Chinese technology called feng shui. So I found that she told us that we could not only douse for what the best balance of elements in the room could be, and you can check with your dowsing rods. Do I have enough metal? Do I have enough water? Do I have enough earth, etc.? Because feng shui is all about balancing the elements
Yeah.
in a room. Well, that's one thing it's about. And but you can also use these rods, these L rods, to douse for the most auspicious date for something or time for something,
Huh.
uh, and and other things as well. So I literally went into my closet the next day with my little L rods, and I very nervously started to ask some questions, and simple questions like, is the sky purple, or is my name Mary, stuff like that. No risk questions, and they answered correctly, and so slowly but surely I started to ask questions with a little more risk to them. And over time, I developed a line of inquiry and a way of understanding with my dowsing rods. What happened over time is that my natural intuition grew as a result of the communication that was happening while I was dowsing. At this point in time, uh, it's like a little window opens up, and I start to receive language and images, uh, whole sentences sometimes when I'm working with a client, so that we're not hemmed in, as with typical dowsing, we're not hemmed in by yes or no questions. We go down literally the rabbit hole, and we feel our way asking the questions in a variety of ways, so that pretty much anything can be answered.
Wow.
Now, we're not dowsers will be quick to say we are not fortune tellers, so we don't, look up numbers for gambling or anything like that. However, we are here to figure out what is in the highest and best for a person.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I tell you that because that learning dowsing and becoming fluent in the language of dowsing um, prepared me for when these visions came in 2010. And so that brings you up to then. If you want me to go forward, I will, but that's a
Please.
long, long answer.
I love it. So I my my thinking is that the listeners most likely are somewhere along their awakening path already,
Mhm.
or getting on it somewhere in there. And so yes, please share. What else could we possibly be looking forward to? What have you experienced that might might be helpful for others to hear in their awakening journey?
Well, I really relate to this because I have always considered myself a student,
Yeah.
and the many, many, many books on my shelf on various topics um, were very helpful in keeping my mind open to possible realities, and kept stretching it, right? And a lot of the books had to do with people who were common people, housewives, whatever, businessmen, not at all open to these things. And then something very dramatic would happen. And they, like a big ancient being would come into the kitchen, that kind of thing. Or angels would show up, and they could not rationalize this. And eventually they had to accept and listen and learn and then become proficient themselves. So I was always drawn to those stories, and I thought, well, that will never happen to me because I have a lot of knowledge, and I'm humbly on my path and I keep learning, but that's not going to happen to me. Well, so I'm here to say that it can happen to anybody. And it's just a question of when I believe we're ready. Um, and some people get it sooner than others. One of the things I love is this idea that, we're very, in America especially, we're very competitive and we're very linear thinking in terms of acquiring knowledge. And even just using that word acquiring, that's what it's like. It's kind of grabbing knowledge and grabbing information as if that somehow makes us important. Spirituality and consciousness is not about that. And it is more about allowing. It is more about non expectation and simply being willing to be in the moment, fully in gratitude, and that's enough. Once we kind of get to that place, it's kind of an empty place in a way where we don't have an expectation about what's next or what should be coming to us, or because anyway, when that state is reached, is my experience is that's when things happen.
So when we're open for the answers and
Yeah, and we're not in a way searching them out.
Yeah.
So let me explain what I mean a little bit. In 2010, I had a very, very challenging year personally, in my family, and many, many dramatic episodes happened. And finally, towards the end of the year, I knew that if I didn't get some R&R, I was fully depleted and I was going to get sick. So I went for back-to-back sound healing workshops in Washington State. And in the process of going through that, my goal, aside from what was going on in the workshop, but my personal goal was to just basically wipe the stories clean, just empty out. And at the end of it, I was so delightfully empty, and I said to Spirit, I am now a willing vessel. Do with me what you will. I was so grateful to be scrubbed clean and without story. So that I said that in my mind to Spirit. And I came home, and it was fantastic to be a new me, really. and and then 3 days later, I started having these visions. And even with all my so-called knowledge and experience, I was not, I thought I was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I'm telling this story because when we start to have these dramatic alternate reality experiences, our first inclination is to get scared and shut them down.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book, like I love that you're doing this summit because um, much encouragement is needed to not do that, not shut down. If I didn't have my dowsing, I would have had no way to understand the visions that I had. So what they were was this. The first one, and I was broad daylight in my living room. I mean, no out of the blue, basically. I saw this giant wall of water 100 feet tall, beautiful. And it was moving swiftly towards me. And there was a byline underneath it that said, this represents a push of evolution for the planet that is coming and will be wrapping around the planet and anchoring in at the end of 2011. You can choose to resist this,
Mhm.
or you can learn to swim or surf with the wave. If you resist, it'll be much more difficult. So that was vision number one. Then this giant wave turned to its side, and I saw that wave, with curling letter C, kind of like, that the surfer would come through.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, like on my website.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Curling wave. So the byline with that was the way that the wave energy works is water pulls away from the shore and deepens into the seabed in order to get the power to create the crest.
Yeah.
So the byline was, as the water moves away from the shore, deepens into the seabed, into the earth to get its power, so should you, meaning me, but meaning everyone, leave your knowledge on the shore.
Wow.
Go to the earth, to the wisdom keepers of the earth, and there you will find your power. And then mix that with this incoming push of evolution. And then what happened was that curling letter C didn't just fall back into the water. It became a standing figure eight made of flowing water like this.
Wow.
And there was no byline. It looks like, I don't know if you guys can see it, looks like that.
Like an infinity symbol with water flowing.
Yes, and very important that it's moving.
Yes.
So that image was about this big, and it hung out in front of my head for
Huh.
a couple of days. I was very aware of it. I couldn't see it with my eyeballs, but I could see it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what the heck that was. So after about 3 days, I got my dowsing rods out and I sat down and I said, what is going on?
Yeah.
So that's when I was told that this thing is called the infinity wave, that it is a beautiful gift for us to help to remember that we should stay flexible and in flow as all of these increasingly challenging things are coming our way. To remember to swim with that wave or surf that big wave, because it's coming whether we liked it or not. So, then they told me that I needed to create workshops, a series of 9 from starting in January 2011, one weekend a month. And I did, although I was absolutely terrified and did not want to. I'm also saying this for your audience because
And me, because
because I was happy being in the closet. I was happy being in my own little private Idaho with all my books and all my ideas and all my healings and all those things. And I was basically being kicked out of the nest.
yeah.
And I did not feel I was up to being the teacher of anything or the guide or anything like that, because although I'd done that in different topics, been a performer, been a teacher, lots of things, um, in this area, no, I felt like I would be a student forever, and I still am.
Yeah.
However, there's a way to be a student and a guide,
Uh-huh.
and at the same time. So what I didn't know what I would be teaching. I had no idea what this infinity wave was. And then I sat down with my dear friend and colleague, and once a week I would sit with my dowsing rods and I would basically begin to channel, which I didn't realize I had been doing before, but then it became very obvious. And out would come these beautiful practices involving the infinity wave. And I would have 3 of them just in time for my workshop. I'd do the workshop, thinking, "Oh God, is this going to mean anything to anybody?" And people would be remarkably moved.
Huh.
And then I'd get 3 more weeks, I'd get three more, and then I'd do another part two of the workshop, and so on and so forth. And talk about walking with blinders on. This is when, and this is, I think, what's the most important thing for people who are on the path and awakening. It's really that old saying, no risk, no reward. The universe can't catch us if we're not willing to fall. When we fall into trust. We're falling blindly, and we're allowing ourselves to be caught. If we're not willing to take that leap, then we're playing it safe, and we will have things happen. And like for me, for the first, I had, lots of things happen, but it wasn't until I was flying blind, so-called teaching people about this thing that I didn't even know what it was, relying on these channelings and going back and looking. The topic was spiritual conscious evolution. Now, that was a topic that hardly anybody was talking about, believe it or not. Conscious evolution was not a topic in 2010.
Not really.
Because I looked it up. And certainly not in the way that I was being taught about it through these practices and through going on the journey of the infinity wave and working in the quantum in this way and seeing miraculous things happen every time, every day. Things would shift and change so quickly using this technology. I mean, we'd be rubbing our eyes and going, our conscious minds could hardly contain what was happening.
That was
So
around the time I started feeling that was my direction as well, of working to help evolve the collective consciousness.
well, the beautiful thing is there's a big field out there
Yeah,
that you're tapping into and others are tapping into. And so it's almost like a program that's already had a lot of writing on it. And you're plugging in and going, wow. And so and this is the good news for everybody, is that because of all the work of the people before me, all those books that I read, all those people who carried the the weight for so many years with all the eyeball rolling, and then the contributions from people like me and my colleagues and people like this program has gotten quite large and available. So now when people plug in, they plug into a wealth of data and availability. So they don't have to see, this is the thing. The wave came is because we needed a faster way.
yeah.
We could not go and sit in a cave for the next 10, 20 years. That was then, and that was perfect for then. But now life has speeded up so much that we need a tool that will help us evolve quickly.
Yeah.
So this wave is in the collective consciousness now. And I'm going to just let you know that in 2011, when I started teaching these workshops, I looked everywhere for the infinity sign. I didn't find it in logos. I didn't find it in jewelry. I did not find it in packaging. I did not find it anywhere.
Uh-huh.
Starting in January 2012, I see it spray painted on a sidewalk. Somebody hands me a cappuccino with the infinity sign in it, not knowing anything. And now it is ubiquitous.
Yeah.
People don't really know why they're so attracted to it, but it's in the collective now, whether people know what the infinity wave is or not. It is in the collective as a powerful symbol.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about it, and then I'll be quiet for a minute and you can talk, but one of the beautiful things about it is that we've moved from a circle, which we understand to be a beginning, a journey, and an end, right? But you take that same circle and you twist it, right? and you've got the infinity. And the fact that the infinity is moving, it demonstrates a continuum. So that at any point that we're at in our development, we know that we are really on this continuum. And the shape of it being, you know, expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting, etc. It's helpful for us to remember when we're on this journey and we reach a sticky place. Oh, that's just me going into a contraction, which is going to move me through into another expansion, which is going to be beautiful and bring me back into the next level of contraction. And actually, it's spiraling upwards. So you're not just doing it in one place in one space and time, you're growing upwards as you do these loops. You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
That's kind of a visual, as I see spiritual evolution.
Uh-huh.
So, anyway, there's a lot more to say about it, but I'll pause here for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. What popped in my head when you're explaining about going from the circle to the infinity wave is that the past millennia that we've been going through, the cycles have usually been either a masculine yang cycle or a yin cycle, and now we're actually merging and blending and balancing those. And so that's the the yin and yang balancing together, working together, and evolving humanity and the planet. It's all happening.
That's so true, Jeremy, and very well said. And I have to tell you, I mean, I have a wild story um, about that very thing that happened in May of 2012, and it was a directive, really, from a feminine council that came through me, um, and and yeah, you'll read about it in my book. It was pretty amazing. But the it is time that the divine feminine and masculine walk together hand in hand on equal footing. And the only way to do that is to sort of wipe the slate clean of the past.
Yeah.
We're not going to get anywhere. All the transgressions, you can't hold on to it if you're going to move forward.
Right.
So that's what this incredible experience that I had was about. And so you nailed it. You nailed it right there. Thank you.
I think that we've been blessed with being given a lot of these tools that are helping us wipe the slate clean in many different modalities, many different ways,
That's
different
true.
tools. And so, could you talk a little more about how this infinity wave does that,
Sure,
and how it helps us through our awakening process?
sure. Well, as I said, it's here to create speedy change.
Yeah.
And you can always slow down the process. Uh, but once you invite the infinity wave to dance in your life, it typically makes change happen pretty quickly. Um, First of all, it's water, and water has so many amazing properties, one of which is cleansing. So, as we were saying, you can invite this little infinity sign, and it can be any size. It can be teeny tiny, it can be cosmic, okay? Any size you want. And well, I'll tell you about it in a minute. So, you can invite it into your field, you can invite it into your body. There's a beautiful, I do a meditation it's called widening the heart, where the infinity wave is going this way. And as you breathe, you stretch the heart, and you can literally feel your heart tissue opening and your chest expanding. It's just an idea, but let's remember that if we look around our rooms that we're in right now, every single thing in it, except the air, was an idea, right? And it became reality. It came from here and became so. Uh, we work in the realm of ideation because we understand that imagination and ideas actually take form. They either get all the way to something more solid, but they can still have form in our minds and in our fields. So this is working in the quantum. Okay, so it's how if a butterfly flaps its wings on the other side, that I could be aware of it or you could be aware of it. We are connected through this great matrix. Okay, so if we use the infinity wave in our systems to just to wash, just imagine, covering your body with it all the way down to the bottom of your feet and just cleansing away any stagnation, any heavy energies, just flushing, right? So that's one minor way you can use it. You can use it to, as I said, widen the heart and put this flow in here. Now, what I haven't mentioned is what is inherent in the water. It's not just plain old water. It is this 10th dimensional level of love and compassion. Now, love and compassion on a human level is pretty great. If you take that to the 10th dimension, you're talking, it's really almost not able to be felt or understood. So it doesn't have to be. It's the mere act of using the wave introduces a highly distilled and purified level of love and compassion into the field. And you can feel the shift immediately. Okay. So, number one, we want to be in flow within ourselves, right? I mean, what could be better than flooding our systems with love and compassion? Self love, self compassion, but also abundant, infinite love and compassion from beyond. So we introduce that into our fields. All of a sudden, we feel a little better. It can be used to also shift our emotional state. So let's say you just want to, let's say you're driving in traffic and you're getting irritated because there are too many cars or whatever. You can't, using the wave on oneself, consciously sitting there, all of a sudden you'll feel everything start to melt. You'll feel a relaxation and a peace, and you will stop getting angry at the car in front of you. And then what's cool, the traffic will start to move, right?
Yeah.
But it started here,
Uh-huh.
okay? And we know we have these fields of energy around us, right? We all have a tube torus, toric field around us.
Yeah.
So if you bring in this vibration of love and compassion and flow, then that flow is going to radiate out and it's going to start to affect all the fields around you. And so in a beautifully relaxed state, all of a sudden obstacles will move away. And all you've done is taken care of yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? Now, if you're having a conversation with somebody, and it can be somebody you know well or not, you can connect with them through this wave.
Uh-huh.
So I started waving you at the beginning of this call, right? So I connected my heart to your heart, and what I'm giving, I'm also receiving. So it's, and I don't have to conjure up these feelings of love and compassion. They're just there. And just by running the wave, I start to feel them. It's so easy.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, so now you and I, okay, you're mostly water and I'm mostly water. So the water in the infinity wave is actually engaging in your watery cells and my watery cells because it's a vibrational thing. It's not, it's the vibration of the thought, of the image, and that engages into yourselves and creates a harmonic and a vibration in your watery cells and in mine. So now we're both going to be lifted up in this energetic of 10th dimensional love and compassion. So do you think we're going to have a better conversation?
Absolutely. I have I have actually, when I worked in corporate, I used sort of similar techniques where I saw immediate uh, transformation in just the energy of the meeting, and it was like, whoa, that was wow, okay. Uh,
That's right. And look, this is just a tool. It's an easy tool. It doesn't require, I mean, we're talking about it now, but you could teach it to a child in a minute and they play with it.
yeah,
Um, and it can be in any language. I mean, it's just an image, really. So it's one tool. And I encourage people to try it out. It's not a religion. It's it's non-denominational. It enhances whatever your practice is, because it's only going to deepen and widen your experience of whatever practice you employ.
yeah.
So there's no resistance to it. There's no need to resist it.
It's
It's
hard to resist water anyway. That's
right, exactly. So there are many other things you can use it for your physical body, for pain. I have remarkable testimonials of people who have used it for pain and getting over addiction, all kinds of things. But so those are sort of what I call the daily way, some of the ways you can use it in daily life. And there are many more. But on the other hand, it also, and these are the practices that I originally received, divinely, I guess, cosmically, whatever you want to call it. Um, those are a series, and if a person, this is what I used to teach in the workshop, and if a person does those practices in the order in which they came and not rush through them, they will go on a deep spiritual journey and they will have breakthroughs that they heretofore have not been able to have.
yeah,
It is deeply transformative material. So it can be as light as you wish, or it can be as deep as you wish, depending on how far down you want to dive.
right. So I love that you've talked about some guidance from beyond the earthly realm, and uh, basically being led by your intuition, being able to tap in more and learning to trust your intuition more, getting better with that guidance so that you're more of leading more of a spirit-led life, to say it in one way, uh, which I think is probably one of the most empowering things that any of us can bring into our lives. And so you talked some about dowsing. Now, do you want to talk about what you do in a dowsing session?
Yes, and let me just say, you know, leading a spirit directed life is um, is what this is about. The the ability to sort of put my will uh, aside a bit and constantly be directed by whatever thy will is. Now, it doesn't mean that I become a complete puppet. It's not that. It's really a co-creative journey. So I'm including my higher self in my guide team. My guide team is, everybody has a guide team, and as far as I understand it, and I talk to the guide teams quite a lot. Um, and But our higher self is a part of that guide team. So when we're listening, we're really listening to that voice. What would my higher self have me do in this situation? Now, if we're not hearing something back, that's when using some kind of dowsing, I think, is or divination, is extremely helpful. And I've done different divinations, but for me, the dowsing rods are the best for answering those kinds of things. So um, what I do typically, so this is, if you can see the rods here. So I will ask, please show me a yes. So you see them cross in, and please show me a no, and they cross out. The rods have a sleeve on them that is free, allows them to turn freely within. So if you have a question of any kind, and maybe I can help you with.
Let's see. Well, I've been curious because when I've tried them, I doubt myself. Like, am I the one doing this, or am I actually getting an answer? What's happening here? Um,
That's understandable. So what I would suggest is start with things that are questions that are not risky, like, is today the best day for me to go to the grocery store? Uh, and if they say no, say, well, would tomorrow be better? And if they say no, you say, well, how about the next day? And if they say yes, do that. When you do that, you start to build this relationship.
uh-huh.
You go, oh, they see you listening, and more importantly, even acting on the information. So you go to the grocery store 2 days from now, and you run into somebody, and you have a great conversation, and maybe something comes out of it, maybe not, but you've had this moment, you've had this connection that you probably wouldn't have had if you'd gone the other 2 days. And what starts to happen is, at least for me, I started to relinquish my hold on my life and my mind controlling my life, right? I'm a planner, I could do all that, and loosening up the grip was a challenge because we're not taught to do that, and certainly not in this country. Um, but what a lovely, relaxing experience to not have to figure every darn thing out in my own little mind.
Yeah.
So if you have a question, I can demonstrate how this works.
Oh man, I may need
It
help.
can be a simple thing like, you need to buy a car. I don't know, like something mundane or something, a course you're thinking of, take a trip, move. Um,
uh, I've been thinking about going to Costa Rica one of these days, and I saw you've got retreats there, and so
I do.
when might I go to Costa Rica?
Well, let's ask this. Because if I say when, right, let's show you how I do this. So I say, would it be in Jeremy's highest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual good to visit Costa Rica? Yes, it would. Would it be in his highest good to do that sometime within the next 12 months? Nope. How about sometime within the next 24 months? Yes. Okay. So let's figure out when. So we're in February. So let's go to January 2021. Okay. So which month would be the best month for Jeremy to travel to Costa Rica? January 2021, February, March, April. April 2021. Okay. Now, if we wanted to, we could say, well, how about the first week of April? Yep. How about the second week of April? Oh, you're going to go for 2 weeks. How about the third week of April? No, 2 weeks. First 2 weeks of April 2021 is in your highest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual good to go to Costa Rica. Now, if you had asked me a question and I had gotten a halfway, like a 50%, or I got a very slow answer. There are ways that I read these that has to do with all kinds of things. Then I would go back and I would say, well, is it in his highest physical good, mental good, spiritual good, emotional good? And we would narrow it down. A lot of times when we're making decisions, especially if we're very emotional people, we think we're making this decision and it's the right decision, when in fact it's only the emotional piece that's going in one direction, whereas the other two or three are like, no, it's a different answer. And so when we break it down, we then can rework our relationship to the question. We gain perspective. And from there, I can say, well, why? What is it about the emotional aspect of this that is so strong? And then we break that down. So you can really, dowsing can provide tremendous self-knowledge and wisdom.
Wow.
So I have great respect for this tool, and taking me a lot of places.
Right. What are some of the biggest reasons that that people would want a session with you to douse for?
Well, if anybody is at a crossroads, they're trying to decide about a relationship or a trip or a move or a job. And as I said, even mundane things like, what kind of car should I buy and what color and
Yeah.
stuff like that. We can basically answer anything. One of the questions that I get a lot is, what is my purpose, and how should I express myself, in this lifetime? Um, and that takes a little undoing, because that's a very open, question. But we have ways of I have ways of exploring that, where we break it down into different categories and we see where the energy is flowing strongest, and then the images and the things start to pop up in my head, and I communicate those, and people go, oh my gosh, yeah, that's funny you're saying that, because I thought of maybe doing that about 10 years ago, but and things will start to happen. Um, and look, this is information. It often turns out to be pretty accurate, but it's just information. And I don't ever say, you must follow this. It's not
Right.
like that. It's to be put in the consideration pot.
Yes. So you're also highly intuitive, which adds to, but again, it's up to their choice. It's their
Yes,
choice. Uh,
that's right.
I think a lot of us have fallen into the trap and forget and think that, oh my gosh, this person's the authority. I got to do what she said because, oh my gosh, this is coming from spirit.
Exactly. Let's remember, look, I didn't trust many channelers when I became one. I was like, oh no, I'm now a channeler. Uh, not because, look, there's always usually a nugget of something great in most people who are channeling. But we have to remember that we have these fields around us, and they tend to distort the information. So we don't ever know what the percentage of pure information is when we're working with another person. Some people tend to have clearer channels, a clearer connection than others. And it also depends, where are they getting it from? I mean, there are lots of places to source information from. I source from the universe. So, somebody else might source from uh, the cosmos. I mean, some other thing. So, or the galaxy rather. Um, so what I also do with my rods is I ask of myself, to what is the percentage of pure information I'm getting, and I'm not satisfied unless it's over 90%. Now, even so, I acknowledge that I have a potential for distortion. So I always tell people, please run this through your own consciousness, and see if it resonates.
Yeah, I love that. It's really about empowering the individual, not giving them the answer.
Yes, exactly. Which is why I teach dowsing, because I want to put the tool in people's hands and say, here, try this.
Yes.
You know, I love this communication that builds up over time. And I don't douse for myself very much anymore. I douse for my trips that I lead people on, the dates of my trips, where we're going exactly, and stuff like that. But nowadays, mostly well, I also am a medium, and um, I talk with my guide team, so I get guidance from a lot of different ways. So it's not just my rods now, but boy, they were my what am I trying to say? My line, that I hung on to for many years.
Yeah, well, I think anytime we're getting into getting more answers outside of ourselves, there are great divination tools, whether it's dowsing rods or pendulums or oracle decks or tarot decks or the I Ching or whatever it is. And so I love that, hearing your story around how that's been so valuable for you and the people that you've worked with. And one of the biggest reasons, because it's helped you learn your own intuitive guidance and
Mm.
get more confident with that. I've
Mhm.
I've learned that that's one of my challenges in this life that I get to figure out is how to trust my intuition more. I'm highly intuitive and uh, don't always believe it. So learning to
It,
decipher.
it it takes it takes a lot of courage to believe that, even though in your mind you might think all these things are true, like all the things you read about, everything we're talking about, in your mind is saying, uh-huh, uh-huh. But like Buddha said, the longest journey is from the mind to the heart,
Yeah.
the head to the heart, because our real intuition is here. And so it's not just about, it's not like being lovey-dovey all the time. That's not what we mean by talk about the heart. There are brain cells in the heart. There is consciousness in both places. And learning to live with both of these kind of balanced, and maybe even this leading a little bit more. I mean, we have both for a reason.
Yeah.
So backing the mind down and saying, hey, this time I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna see what happens. And if things turn out well, that gives me more experience that this actually works.
Yeah.
And over time, and that's the great thing about dowsing. That's what I'm saying. You can test it, you know, for a month, for 2 months, test it. Ask other, things that you should do, like, you know, when you should do certain things, what's the best time for you, what color you should wear today, stuff like that, stuff that doesn't carry a lot of risk. And then do it,
Yeah.
and you'll see it starts to become this groovy conversation.
Nice.
And you will trust more and more and more, and then you ask riskier questions, and you do that, and you go, wow, that really worked out. Okay, let's up the ante a little more, and little by little by little, you relax into not just working from here.
Yeah. Now, so you'd mentioned you've got something here that you're offering, dowsing sessions as well as these Infinity Wave MP3s. Could you tell us a little about those?
So those are the original 9 practices that came to me, through this mechanism, and that I used in my workshops. And they are really for people who want to do a very deep dive. Um, I'm offering for free the starter kit with the Infinity Wave, and that there's a document in there with a lot of things I've said here, but also a few more techniques for how to use the wave. So if people just wanted to dip their toe in, they'll get the free starter kit, and that's great. And if they find that they're really intrigued by this and they want to do a deep dive, then they might want to order those MP3s. And then, I'm doing a discount, obviously, for the MP3s, and I'm doing a discount for my dowsing sessions. So people can combine them or get one or whatever they wish.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible offering and a great way to support those that are on their awakening and looking for more tools to help open themselves up and get to the next stage of wherever that might be. Um,
Jeremy, that is my mission. But that is what I said yes to. When I said I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. By the way, don't say that unless you really mean it.
Right.
Um, but when I said that, and they gave me my job, which I didn't want to do, but realized I'd already said I was willing. So I don't really turn away from spirit. I don't turn away from spirit. So um, thank goodness, because it's opened me in ways I never ever would have expected, and brought me into a level of experiences that I had only read about, and and my mission is to help others do the same. That's what the wave is here for. It's here to be a tool for transformation. So I'm that's what how I serve.
Very much. I feel like there are many of us that are here at this point in time in this generation on this planet to create and bring in that change. And I feel so thankful uh, to get to be somehow involved with that, and to be working with people that are also leaders that are bringing these changes in. And because if we're all connected, why wouldn't we want to help each other heal and recover and awaken and be a part of that movement? We're here to be those leaders. And so
That's right. That's right. When the very first channeling that came in, I don't have it in front of me, but they said, "You are the lights, and you will be called upon to use that light. Each of you will be part of the awakening of the other."
uh-huh.
And so this um, idea that we're all these little pinpoints of light, and each one that turns on adds to the general, glow, and that it's our responsibility actually to not only turn our own on, but to help to turn other people's on, whether you're doing it professionally like I am or you are, or whether it's just in your family or your daily life. You can wave the person at the checkout counter and send them a little zap of love and compassion. Do not say a word, you just send it to them, and that's no skin off anybody's nose, right? That's easy.
Yeah.
This is easy. We're working in the quantum. We're literally, shooting off these love bombs all over the place. And it will impact their field, and it will improve their day,
Yeah.
you know? So I know it sounds, you know, I know it sounds almost too good to be true or not quite possible or anything, but if I didn't, if I hadn't seen what I've seen and had other people tell me what they've e- experienced, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
There's so much evidence
Yeah.
that I have to believe it.
Yeah. I, I I feel super resonant with it, and I the more I think about it, the more it seems like, I was almost killed by a drunk driver in a head-on collision when I was 16,
Mm.
and they said I'd probably never walk again, and I didn't remember a whole lot of it because I was in so much pain, and I think that it's totally possible I had some kind of awakening or something that I just haven't been as consciously aware of. Um, but I feel super resonant with a lot of the awakening stuff. Um,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Wow, good for you.
So hopefully I'll become more aware at some point consciously.
Oh, don't worry. You're on the way. It's going to happen. Because, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, well,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't generally devolve.
Right. No. Yeah. I think that's makes really good sense. It's once you see the light, like, why would you ever choose anything different?
Right, exactly.
Well, this has been wonderful. I super appreciate having you on. Is there any last words of wisdom that you might like to share with the audience?
Oh, just go forth and glow, be in flow. Um, just know that you are really, really important in the grand scheme of things. It may not seem that way, but what I hear from the other side, each time somebody crosses the threshold into awakening a little bit more, there's basically a huge party. It
Mm,
it is it is so important. Uh, we're just that far away from really understanding that. So I'm saying that you are important, and turning on your light is super important. So go for it.
awesome. Yeah, great. Perfect. Thank you so much, Hope.
Thank
And
you, Jeremy.
yeah, and I want to thank the listeners for tuning in
Mm.
and working on all of your awakening paths, whatever that might look like for you. It's different for everybody, and that's why we're talking about tuning into your own intuitive guidance so that you can really be more empowered and not taking other people's answers and guidance that maybe doesn't apply to you. So, all right. Well, thank you so much and much love.
Much love. Bye bye.